there's two things that determine predictive side, like tax delinquency, all of the data points. And there's the buy box, which is what makes sense for you to buy. Because just like a newbie, a professional investor also has a 20% of zip codes that generate 80% plus of the revenue.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
What's going on? What's going on? My name is Alex Pardo, and you're about to listen to episode 763 on the Flip Empire show, where I get to interview one of my former coaching clients, Felipe Bossans, who is a stud. The guy's a ninja. If you've ever heard of what a data scientist is, Felipe and his partner Jesus are the definition of not only great people, successful, high achieving real estate investors, but these guys are data scientists. They take data when it comes to real estate investing and predictive index analysis, all this crazy stuff that I couldn't even begin to explain to you. These guys have taken data to a whole nother level. And on today's podcast, I had the joy of interviewing Felipe, who, again, as you're about to hear, I had the opportunity to work with back in 2017 when they were just getting started. And now, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deals later, they have had the opportunity to analyze over 1.5 billion messages and calls and gain valuable insights into what is working, what isn't. And that's what we're going to be talking about on today's podcast, guys. We're going to be talking about how what are the specific data points that you need to be tracking? Just so that you know, Felipe and his partner Jesus founded a company called 80/20 REI, and they live and die by the 80/20 principle, which some of you may or may not know means that 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of the effort. So they have literally taken that concept. They've built a company out of this. And now they essentially help and empower real estate investors across the country with advanced machine learning and predictive analytics to be able to find discounted properties, right? Who are the homeowners that are most likely to sell to you at a deep discount? So you're going to get a lot out of today's podcast episode. But before we dive into it, if you are wanting to build a bridge from what you are doing over into self-storage, or if you're looking to add self-storage to what you're already doing, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Head over to www.storagewins.com, storagewins.com. Just take a minute to apply. And if I like what you have to say, we'll go ahead and schedule a call and see how I might be able to help and add value when it comes to self-storage. So with that being said, guys, let's dive right into episode 763 with my good friend, Felipe. What's going on, guys? I got my buddy Felipe in the house. And guys, I think you guys are going to get so much out of this podcast episode. You know, 760 something podcast episodes in, and I never take these opportunities for granted. Felipe and I were just talking offline, and I was sharing with him that, like, I think one of my core beliefs is that you need to be, and Felipe actually said this, is you're a student for life. And I was sharing with him how my belief is you can always learn something if you're open-minded and open-hearted. You can always learn something from pretty much anyone, right? And when I had the opportunity to come on here and host this show and interview sharp people and just quality people like Felipe, I'm always a student and I can always pick something up, which is pretty cool because I actually had the opportunity to coach Felipe and Jesus way back, probably a decade or so ago, I want to say, maybe more.
Almost. It was back in 2017 when we were getting started in wholesaling here in South Florida, super competitive market. And I'll never forget, I went to a home appointment and I see a postcard of, I think it was like, I don't want to butcher the name of the company, but I was like, oh, this guy has it figured out because, like, your podcast beat me on that home appointment because you got to that seller first. So I was like, this guy's good. So
that's awesome.
I was, and then we would just, like, we had to figure out a way. And I'm very grateful for the time that we worked together because it really opened our eyes to, what could be possible in wholesaling off market. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it was, man, I have fond memories of working with you and Jesus. You guys, I always saw you as rising stars, and I don't want to say you're no longer rising because you guys are still doing some pretty awesome things, but now you guys have built a name and a reputation for yourself in the industry. Like, you guys have closed tons of deals. And I think what's most fascinating to me that I really want to kind of transition the conversation into is when I think of data, when I think of like what somebody might refer to as a data scientist, right? Like, and I'm not talking about an actual science. I'm talking about like being able to leverage data in your real estate investing business. You and Jesus are one of the first people that come to mind. Like, you guys have found a niche within the business, and you guys, from my perspective, have pretty much mastered data. And obviously now you have a company called 80/20 that provides services and just gets the highest and best quality data for real estate investors. And the purpose of this show is not necessarily to pitch that, although I have every trust and confidence, and I would vouch for these guys with my eyes closed. So I do see there's an opportunity for people listening to this to connect with you about your services and what you guys provide. But I want to zoom out, and I want to, you and I have a heart for driving value and just being of service to people. And whether people work with you or not, I want them to listen to this short podcast and say, hey, I was able to extract 1, 2, 3 or more valuable nuggets on the data side of the business that I can now go implement. So I'm going to start off with a very broad in the clouds question, and then we can kind of drill down into more tactical specific things. But how do real estate investors listening to this podcast, how do they start to think about data and understand why data is so important in their real estate investing business?
That's a great question. It's I'll try to keep it as simple as possible, so that way it can add as much value to the listeners. But in a nutshell, as real estate investors, what we're finding is that the three biggest problems or challenges that we're always facing, it's one, we either have low or inconsistent lead flow. Two, the conversion rates are not really all there, which is more like a sales problem. And that's, like another conversation on hiring a coach. And three, your cost per acquisition, it's increasing. It's always going on the rise. Like my things in masterminds that you probably heard or from other guests is like cost per contracts keep going up. Mm-hmm. So if you try to attack the root cause of it, 99% of the time it goes down to the lead flow. So how does data plug into this? Data is only, I would say, 30% of the equation. Okay. I mean, having great data, it's good. You can pull up data straight from the counties or whatever, but then it's what you do with that data.
Yeah.
For example, how often you're going to call, how often you're going to mail, how often you should text, and what message should be going into that.
That's right.
So that it's where, from, again, when we used to do it for investors, it gave us a good perspective of what works, what doesn't work. And to anybody that is listening to this podcast, I would just focus on answering one simple question, like, how can I generate more leads that are going to convert at a higher rate, that is going to lower my cost per deal without spending more? Because typically it's like, hey, let's just throw money at it. Let's just double down our marketing budget. And that's, I don't know if that helps.
It does. And in fact, to be honest, man, like I've been guilty of that. I've been guilty of saying, hey, let's just throw more dollars at it. And then what's fascinating to me, man, is like, I remember when I ran the wholesaling operation, we would look at the amount of money we would spend on direct mail as an example. And what we're looking for is the 0.5% of the opportunities that are going to come in are going to be our sandbox to potentially play in. The homeowners we can potentially help buy a deal, et cetera. And it's like, what about the other 99.5% of these prospects on this list? Like, what do we do with that, right? So I want to kind of start there is, how do we, there's so many different ways to generate leads, right? And I love the question you asked. It's like, how do we generate more leads that are going to lead to higher conversions and reduce our cost per deal or our cost per contract? I'm a true believer, man. You ask quality questions and you might not get the answer right away, but your brain, your ecosystem will go to work to give you that answer. Let me kick that question back to you. And there we can go in a lot of different directions, but how can people start generating more leads lower their conversions and ultimately lower their cost per deal?
So, couple of things there. I think that marketing for in real estate, whatever it's for wholesaling, for flips, for whatever that is, it has cycles. You know, like I remember when you were coaching us back in 2017, you were big on direct mail, and not that many people was doing it because at the time, texting, cold calling, other channels started to get hot, and the cost per acquisition. What was attractive was the cost per acquisition. So if you zoom out of it, really what you should be always trying to figure it out, and again, it's the 80-20 of things. So where and in a nutshell, what is the 20% of zip codes that are likely to give me 80% or more of my revenue? And that's where I'm going to deploy my marketing dollars.
I love it.
And then once I have that 20% of zip codes that are going to give me 80% of my revenue, then let's figure it out with the data, because this is, again, there's I would be aware of anybody, and of course it's not your case because you're I know you as a coach and I trust you. I will be very wary of a coach or mentor that is saying this is the absolute best channel that works. This is, like the silver bullet to all my problems.
Doesn't exist.
No, there's no solution. There's only trade-offs, because if you're going to choose to go with one marketing channel or one strategy or one zip code, you're going to be at the expense of not marketing to others, because we only have limited marketing dollars. So one thing that I will focus on is that once I know that 20% of zip codes that are likely to give me 80% or more of my revenue, let's prioritize with data, which properties I'm going to be going after and how I'm going to target them. Because it's not the same targeting, for example, a zip code that you have a track record of having super good buyers, and that you have very good rapport that you know really well, as opposed to a zip code where you're not performing that well.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So for us, it's making those decisions, but with data and numbers, so it removes all the emotion and the perception of like, I close a couple deals there, so therefore that zip code is amazing, and then you're dumping marketing dollars like crazy.
So here's my follow-up question for you, Felipe. And it's kind of it's a two-part question. The first question is going to speak directly to those people listening and watching this podcast that are just getting into the game and maybe they don't have enough deals under their belt, have enough of a sample size of data. How would they determine what are the 20% of the zip codes where they're doing business that are going to generate 80% of the results in business for them? And then I'll just pitch you the second question. For those who are seasoned and have data and deals under their belt, how do they take that data to figure out what's the 80-20?
Okay, that's a great question. It's a little loaded. If you're starting your journey and you're new, I would say that the best thing to do is to go an inch wide and a mile deep. Figure it out. Because you know what, it's sexy these days, do virtual wholesaling nationwide or buy my program, whatever. No, just figure it out where in your backyard you can create those quick wins. And there's sources for that. Like they don't even need to get a premium predictive data solution right off the bat, because it's a big commitment. They can, for example, go to their local county assessor's website, and there's multiple data sources. I would probably prioritize pre-foreclosures, tax records, and any city liens.
Okay,
because that's the likelihood of somebody selling at a discount on those type of properties. It's a lot higher. The downside is that it's not scalable. So that brings me to the second question, which is seasoned investors. Let's talk about, for example, when you were active in real estate, I'm talking about 100+ deals a year type of operations, like the one that you had when you were in residential. Now you switched to self-storage, which I think is genius. At that point, you're no longer running a real estate business. you're actually running a sales and marketing business, and real estate is just the widget.
So I want to pause right there, and I want you guys to rewind 15 seconds. And in fact, brother, I'm going to ask you to repeat that because there is so much wisdom and truth in what you just shared. When you start to build the business and you start to like really do volume, real estate is just a product, right? But that's not the actual business you're in. So if you can repeat that again, because I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
So yeah, I'll try it. So it's when you're a professional real estate investor, what you actually are running, it's a sales and marketing business. And the product that you're trading, the widget is real estate, it's a property.
Yeah.
They're having the absolute best data. It's not a nice to have. It's something that you either that you have to have. I mean, my partner Jesus, he comes from the poker environment, and he's seen that evolution that happened over 20 years on becoming a old school, mom and pop type of let's play at a table to young guys playing thousands of tables at the same time. We don't have the luxury of that time, of that amount of time here in real estate. Yeah. Like there's with AI, with things that are happening now, the window it's getting a lot shorter. And for professional investors, that not only they're having to deal with those challenges, but also regulation challenges for the wholesaling industry, you have to be ahead of the curve. There's no other way.
Yeah, you kind of stole one of the questions. Well, it wasn't a question, but you talked about the wholesaling regulations, and I'm curious your thoughts on that. But I'm going to put a pin in that question for now. We can circle back to that. I want to rewind for a second and just recap a few things that you just dropped. And in case people didn't pick it up, I want to underscore and highlight it. Number one is the advice, especially if you're getting started, an inch wide and a mile deep. Plant your flag somewhere in your backyard because it's easiest, it's tangible, it makes the most sense. And favor is going to reward momentum. And what I mean by that is by doing the activity, doing the work consistently, you're going to start to uncover things, and that's how you're going to learn, right? So don't worry the fact that you don't have all this data an inch wide, a mile deep in your backyard. I think makes a lot of sense. The second thing is for the seasoned investors, I know a lot of seasoned investors that have been doing this for years and have closed hundreds and hundreds of deals that are still kind of getting data in a, let's just call it a non-methodical way, or are not being as intentional about the data. And while they're still doing well, at least from the outside, they can be doing so much better. Like when they come up against an operator like you that beats them to a deal, right? It's because you have better data, you have better systems, processes. And I also love the fact that, because I was going to ask you, you said a tax, you said pre-foreclosures, you said a tax list, and then you said city liens, correct?
That's correct, because those are the ones that you can get, whether your county it's internet friendly or not. It's something that you can literally drive to your local county assessors and even get, like, take pictures at the computers they have there, and then skip trace, and you can even call, door knock, send them a nice direct mail piece, which, by the way, direct mail, what we're seeing across the board, marketing channels are like fashion. Sometimes they come and go. Like up until 2 years ago, everything was texting and cold calling. Now direct mail is making a huge comeback because of the regulations. So
yeah. Man, I remember at one point RVMs was like the sexy thing, right? And if you didn't see Felipe, he just kind of like rolled his eyes, right? And there's a lot of like regulations with all that kind of stuff. So like, whatever marketing channel you're doing, like consult with the pros, right? Make sure you're doing things above board and you're not.
I would highly recommend that. And,
yes, No, you go ahead.
One more thing. That's it. For me, like, and again, I'm talking from personal experience, the importance, especially when you're starting, and not only when you're starting, because we were just talking offline about this, along the lines in your journey, you have to have a coach, a mentor, and for us, like as a rule of thumb, whenever we're going to hire a coach or a mentor, and I'm going to use the example of when we worked together way back in 2017, I always ask myself the question that your ideal mentor, it's somebody that is experiencing the level of success that you're experiencing by the time you want to get there. So let's say you want to get to in a year, 3 years from now.
Yeah.
I'm not, for example, if I want to get into self-storage, I'm probably going to hire you to help me on my journey, because I don't want to go through the brain damage of figuring out by myself on that. So it's in business is the same with data, with marketing, with that. You got to partner up with somebody that it's been there, that it's already doing the things that you want to do. So you don't have to learn painfully by wasting so much marketing dollars.
Yeah. No, I could not agree with you more, brother. Hey there, stop. I promise to get you back to the show, but let me ask you a couple of questions. Are you happy with the money that you're making in your real estate business? Are you generating any cash flow? Are you building wealth? Do you feel like you're making progress, or are you just constantly chasing deals and going after the next transaction and the next transaction? Well, I can tell you from personal experience that there's an easier way, and it's not with single family homes. I believe that self-storage is the best asset class in real estate, hands down, because we're not dealing with tenants, toilets, there's automation, it's a recession-resistant asset class, and it's a business that has the benefits of real estate. If what you're ultimately after is cash flow, building wealth, and time freedom, I want to invite you to just take a few minutes to apply. Go to www.storagewins.com, where you can learn more about our Storage Wins coaching program. And I can help you generate cash flow from your first storage facility within the next 6 to 12 months without needing to use your money or even needing any experience. So head over to www.storagewins.com. And if we like what you have to say, we'll schedule a call, and I look forward to connecting with you. Now back to the show. Let's talk about the regulations. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes over the last couple of years, and especially in the last year. Talk to us about where the regulations stand now, at least to your knowledge. And then you don't have a crystal ball, Felipe, but how do you see the industry changing? And more importantly, how do we adapt?
So, I mean, as far as like my knowledge, and again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not. This is not legal advice, right? But the current trend we're seeing is that wholesaling, it's becoming outlawed in some states, and what that means is that the traditional wholesaling model is just not going to work anymore, and that's because there's been people, not like the listeners of this podcast, not like the people in our circle, but that have made a bad reputation for this business.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, wholesaling, what it's doing at its core, it's fixing an inefficiency of the market. That's just what it is.
Fixing an inefficiency of the market. I don't think I've ever quite heard it that way. Could you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by that?
I'm going to elaborate on that, because in an ideal scenario, there would be a one-stop shop for a homeowner that it's going to help them solve their problem. Does that make sense? Like
sure.
Fixing the property, whether it's physically or whatever title issues that the property might have, and then take the property to the market for the highest possible profit. Wholesalers that have been, how do I say this? Not focusing on serving homeowners, but being more self-serving, have become glorified middlemen. And pretty much because there's not a figure like a one-stop shop that will help them, fix their property, put the, like clear title, and then take the property to market. Some wholesalers have become glorified middlemen that have done that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. And I think it's the difference between, just a quick thing before I kick it back to you. It's the difference. I love the way you put that. Are you serving or are you self-serving? Right. Like, and look, it's business, right? So it's got to make sense for you, but good business is serving people and doing right by them and making sure that your service, your solution is what that person needs. Right. That is good business. So anyways, let me kick it back to you.
That's right. And that's why I remember one of the episodes you had here. One of the people that I've worked with, Annie Yatch, she's amazing. She's an amazing human being. She mentions that success is an optimized daily experience sustainable over time. If you're focusing on creating that environment, that optimized daily experience over time, then the profit part or the money part, it's a byproduct of it. But it's not your why. It's not your vision. You're not in this business to make an assignment fee. You're not in this business to double close and post in social media a check for $40,000. You're in this business to help somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, man, I echo every single word you said, and I'm hoping that resonates with people because sometimes I think when you're money focused and that is the primary driver, A, I don't think it's sustainable. And B, it's not what the foundation of a solid business is built on. Obviously, I'm not saying generating revenue and having a strong bottom line is not important. Of course it is. It's a business, but what is it tied to? And it's got to be bigger than just that. Why does the business exist? Right. So get super clear on that. Felipe, brother, talk a little bit about what you guys are doing over at 80/20 REI. Like obviously you guys are not for everybody, but who is your customer and like who would come to you and what service do you guys provide?
Okay. So you asked me what would be the advice for somebody starting in their journey, somebody that it's more on the professional side. We work with professional real estate investors. Our clients are consistently, running a sales and marketing business, and they just want to have an edge against their competition, and that's through data. In a nutshell, the way that we work, we help them solve the number one problem in the industry, which is getting low quantity of leads. Mm-hmm. And we do this by providing them a monthly update of a ranking system of every single property in their market. Because at the end of the day, a professional investor, it's not looking at new houses. It's looking at new life events of the owners of these properties and getting access to that ranking of properties that move up, down, or out of the ranking. It's super important when you already have a marketing budget and you have a cadence and you have a whole team that it's depending on that.
Mm-hmm. So let me kind of do my best to pitch back what I heard for you is essentially you guys have a ranking system that will filter to the top the homeowners that based on their life circumstance might be most in a position to sell their property and sell potentially at a deep discount.
At a discount. That's right. So let's think about it. I'm going to use an example because we're both from Miami. Mm-hmm. There's insights that you get that are deeper than that, because anybody can give you a list of 30,000 properties that it's going to have a, quarter over quarter is going to be about 80% the same properties that you can just go mail, call, text. No, there's two things that determine that. There's the predictive side, like tax delinquency, all of the data points. Mm-hmm. And there's the buy box, which is what makes sense for you to buy. Because just like a newbie, a professional investor also has a 20% of zip codes that generate 80% or plus of the revenue. Yeah. So one thing that we did, for example, for a client in South Florida was determining what we call the revenue per parcel. So there was two zip codes, 33125 and 33157. Okay. 33125 had 6,900 properties, and 33157 had 18,000 properties. Okay. Both revenues for the client generated about $150,000 in revenue. But the difference is, and this is the concept that we call revenue per parcel, one generated $150K of revenue with only 6,900 properties as opposed to 18,000 properties.
Look at that. So imagine how much more targeted and how much less money you're spending targeting those 6,900 properties versus 3 times as many properties.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So,
Yeah.
so those are the type of insights that you can expect. And again, we've Jesus, like when we were your coaching students, and we presented the concept of list tagging, and you gave us you encouraged us to keep exploring that. This is thing about it as list tagging 3.0. It's insights that you have to beat your competition.
Well, just to buffer what you just shared, right? So in 2017, I had been involved in the business 12 years, right? And your genius zone, that's not my genius zone per se. And I had, to a certain degree, I had thought about list stacking, although I wasn't certainly calling it list stacking, but you guys had taken it to a completely different level. And I remember the conversation where you guys shared, you said, hey, check out what we're doing. We're doing this and this, and you're stacking all this motivation. And I was thinking to myself, freaking brilliant, just brilliant. I don't know anybody out there thinking that far advanced. And people, and real estate investors in general, in my experience, are just lazy. They hear something works and they go do that, or you guys were being innovative. You guys were thinking outside the box, and you were leveraging your giftedness, right? Understanding that side of the business data, and you put something together that clearly worked for your business. And that's when you guys really, really started to ascend, no pun intended. And then you started to just have a lot of success, provide that to others. So dude, love what you guys are doing, man. I love what you guys stand for. It's so awesome, just selfishly from my perspective, to see kind of where you started to how much growth and where you're at now in your business. The fact that now you're helping others, and there's that common thread again, your business serves to help other people, right? And yes, it's a business, so it needs to generate a profit. And by generating a profit, you can continue to go and serve and help more people. So it's awesome, man. I'm really proud of you, man. Felipe, where can people connect with you or somebody on your team if they want to find out more?
We're very easy to reach. You go to 8020rei.com and you can book a call right there. And I personally handle all of those calls. So to make sure that, we're understanding really well if there's anything we can do to help, and if not, we'll be happy to point on the right direction.
I love it. And guys, let them know that you heard about 80/20 here on the Flip Empire Show, and maybe next time I see Felipe, he'll buy me a latte or something, and we can hit Starbucks.
We have an amazing affiliate program, and it's I'm messing around. You're one of our preferred partners.
I'm messing around, brother. So guys, I highly recommend go to 8020rei.com. Just connect with them, see if there's potentially a fit. And even if there's not, how can you start to leverage better data, right? Start to look at the deals you've been involved in and see, hey, what are the 20% of your zip codes that are producing 80% of your results? Maybe even take it a step further, revenue by parcel. That's something I just learned. You see, these guys are kind of taking it a step further. Leverage that data so that you can just generate higher quality leads that are going to lead to higher conversions, and ultimately try to push your deal per contract down. The cost of that deal down is what we're ultimately after. So, brother, my man, congrats on the success, dude. It's awesome having you on. And obviously send my best to Jesus. And maybe we'll get you back on here in the near future, because I know that you guys are always thinking ahead with the data, kind of pushing the envelope. And man, if we can have you back on here to kind of share your wisdom and insight, I think that'd be insanely valuable for people.
For me, it's always an honor to be on the Flip Empire Show, because I've told this many times. You're one of the people I look up to in this industry.
Thank you, man.
You really helped us in the beginning when we were starting in the journey, getting into off market, and always with an open mind. And again, it's regardless of what data solution our listeners are gonna get, it's the importance of finding a coach.
Yeah. I love it, man. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me, man. I'm super proud of you guys. And my friends, I thank you for tuning into another episode here. Just take something that Felipe shared, apply it to your business. That is the best way to thank us for doing this show. Is we just want to see you succeed. We genuinely want to see you win. Anybody that is interested in having a conversation about the self-storage business, head over to storagewins.com. And with that being said, guys, have an incredible day. I'll connect with you on the next one. Take care. One last thing before you go, if you have been listening to the show for a while and or you have been getting value from the show, I would be 100% honored if you would share this show with a friend, or maybe share it with somebody that you think could benefit from this. It's my mission, it's my cause, it's my purpose through Flip Empire to impact and touch people's lives, to help people and in their businesses. So it would be an honor if you would be willing to share this episode. And one last thing, make sure that you're subscribed so that you get notified every Monday and Thursday when shows get released. I look forward to connecting with you on the next one. Until then, have a great day.